In this video, we're going to take a look at one of the most unlikely collaborations in whisky history, surely, and that is between Glenfarclas and Resident Evil or Biohazard. So welcome back to the channel, everyone. And I never thought I would see the day that I would be doing a video about Glenfarclas' collaboration with Biohazard. But it's 2021, whiskey's big business, and we're going to see more of these things to come. And I just think this one really caught my eye because this release is going to be massive. I think this is going to be an absolutely stellar release if you can get hold of the bottles. So I thought we'd take a bit more of an in-depth look at the bottles and sort of like what it's about. Now, first of all, like, what is Resident Evil? So if you're not computer gaming minded, Resident Evil, it's kind of like a survival horror game. I mean, why you would want to spend your time playing a survival horror game is beyond me, but I'm not very good with those sorts of things. And it was originally released in Japan, and it was called Biohazard, and it retains that name in Japan today. But over in the West, it was called Resident Evil, and I think that was because of copyright laws. You know, they couldn't copyright the term Biohazard in the West, so it became known as Resident Evil over here. Now, the plot of the game, it centers around a pharmaceutical company called Umbrella Corporation, and that's developing biological weapons, and there's another group of characters determined to fight back against them. Now, again, look, I got all of this from Google. There's loads of people who know more about Resident Evil and Biohazard than me. I think my last console was a PlayStation 1, and even that was a bit tricky compared to the Mega Drive 2 that I used to love. But the game Resident Evil, it was released in 1996, and it's been massively successful. You know, Resident Evil 5 was the best-selling edition that sold 13 million copies worldwide. And then fast forward 25 years now from that original release, there's been loads of sequels. There's a film series, there's novels, there's comic book series, and can you believe it, 110 million copies have been sold worldwide. So it's obviously a massive audience. Now, the logical question is now, like, what's a survival horror game got to do with a very traditional whiskey company? Well, look, as we said at the start, whiskey is big business. Everyone quotes the Knight Frank Index, normally out of context. The Knight Frank Index is about old and rare bottles of whiskey, and definitely not casks. Look at our other videos on this subject as well. But the fact that whiskey is in the Knight Frank Index, and what else is in the Knight Frank Index? It's jewellery, it's watches, it's coins, it's classic cars, it's handbags, you know, it's the things that show status. So whiskey is now a status symbol. So how do these distilleries market their product to a wider audience, you know, rather than just traditional whiskey drinkers? Well, they start collaborating with people that will get them seen by a wider audience. And we've seen this done really well in recent times with Bimber and the Transport for London release. You know, the Bimber editions have been, you know, okay, but then that Transport for London release was a great collaboration. It opened up the audience a lot. Macallan have just released a partnership with Bentley, and of course you've got Johnny Walker, they did the Game of Thrones series. So because whiskey now has this status, there are a lot of other brands that can gain something by aligning their product with single malt whiskey, and this is the case of what's happened with this Glenfarclas. Biohazard or Resident Evil have come, you know, they think, right, it's our 25th anniversary, so we want to release a 25th anniversary product. What should we release? A 25-year-old single malt whiskey, of course. They've obviously gone to Glenfarclas. Now, what's interesting, so let's take a look at the bottle now. It's an official distillery bottling, so it carries the full, you know, the Glenfarclas branding. It's a very plain and austere looking bottle, really. There's not much on there apart from a bit of Biohazard branding and a big 25 on the box, but it's a collaboratively branded product. This isn't an independent bottling of Glenfarclas. Well, that's a complete other kettle of fish. This is an official release from Glenfarclas, and it's a cask strength release. I think it's at 58.1%, and it's only being released in Japan. I think it goes on sale today, the 21st of July, which is when we're releasing this video. So it's going to be massive. Like, what else can we say? You've got an audience of 110 million gamers worldwide that have played or play Biohazard or Resident Evil, and then you've got a really restricted product. We don't know the numbers on this release. It wasn't in the press releases that Glenfarclas have sent out. The pricing hasn't been made available either. But I would argue that the release numbers are going to be relatively small, you know, just in the hundreds, because I can't see it being a huge multi-thousand bottle release, but I'll stand to be corrected. And I think that the demand is going to be sensational for this. Now, one thing that is really interesting about this is that this has barely appeared in the whiskey industry newsletters. You know, if you look at the Spirits Business and Whiskey Intelligence and all places like this that normally run all the, you know, all of the press releases, we've not been able to find any press releases about this. You know, the places where we're finding the details of this release, it's coming from gaming channels. So it's almost like Glenfarclas are going, yeah, we're kind of doing a Biohazard release, yeah. They aren't singing and dancing about it. Now, that could easily be because it's only for sale in Japan, but why on earth don't you shout about it? This is an amazing sort of thing. I mean, I could be misinterpreting it massively, obviously, but this is going to be a massive release. And this sort of brings us to sort of like one of the other main questions is, what's the investment potential of this bottle? And if you need me to answer that for you, you need to go and have a drink, because obviously, as long as the numbers aren't hugely, you know, in the tens of thousands or even, you know, this is going to be a big release in my opinion. You know, you've got Glenfarclas whiskey, one of the best whiskies produced in Scotland, arguably one of the most historic, one of the most iconic, collaboratively releasing a 25-year-old single malt that's in a really restricted geographic area to an audience that's so engrossed in popular culture, with 110 million copies of that game sold worldwide. The audience is massive here. The whiskey audience might be tiny, but the Resident Evil audience is going to be absolutely massive. Now, the problem with this comes down to the fact that it has only been released in Japan. I don't think it's been released anywhere else in the world. And I'll be really interested to see if any bottles make their way over to the UK. I mean, I've got a friend over in Japan. I've asked him to try and get me a bottle. I don't know if it will come off or not, but it's worth a try. But I think if we can get some of these bottles back to the UK, you know, if 20 or 30 of them end up in the auctions over the next couple of months, I think these are really going to fly, because it's almost gone under the whiskey release radar. I think these are going to be, you know, Biohazard and Resident Evil is only going to turn 25 once. This is just a stellar opportunity if it's available, because I genuinely don't think it's going to be easy to get bottles back over to this country. Now, in our last video about the Bimber, the update on the Bimber Transport for London collection, we did sort of something different. You know, we sort of said, pop your comments below about what you think we should do on this channel more often. And one of the things was to talk about the whiskies that are on the shelf behind me. Now, I'll give you a sneak preview. You know, we do have a lot of old and rare bottles on this shelf. You know, we've got two 1970s Glenfarclas releases here. Now, these are from the 1970s. This one late 1970s. This one is a particularly rare one. It's 40 fluid ounces. It's quite unusual to find in this format. They've been well drunk over the years, and you know, they have, you know, these are sort of slightly passing their best. They've been open for too long. These were gifted to me from a collection that we sold, and they were the gentleman's favourite bottles, and obviously with them being open we couldn't sell them, so their family gifted them to me to carry on enjoying. And you know, they've probably been open for sort of 10, 15, 20 years maybe, so they are sort of slightly past their best. That said, look, if you want to try a dram from one of these bottles, you can either pick it from the 26 2/3 fluid ounces and the 75.7 centilitre bottle, which is a late 1970s bottle, or this 40 fluid ounces bottle. So you can see the two of them. They're both 8 years old, by the way. Then get in the comments below. Tell us what you think about whiskey collaborations with popular culture. You know, is this a good thing for the industry? Do you think it's just sort of diluting the appeal? Is it going to mean that all of these, you know, more of the editions that are released by distilleries are going to sell out so whiskey drinkers can't get hold of them? Tell us whether you think it's a good or bad thing in the comments, and the best comment we'll send the dram to. And make sure you like and subscribe to the Mark Littler channel. We do lots of content. This is a bonus video. We normally release a video every Thursday. So if you want to learn more about whiskey collecting, the history of distilleries and whiskey investment, head over to the Mark Littler website, where we've got loads of blogs on there. And we've also got the Mark Littler Limited shop, where you can buy and sell your whiskies. And we've got them all available for worldwide dispatch.